Hi again, everybody. In this video, which is video 2 of a two-part series, we will be talking to Erica Johnson, who is an advisor within the Fish and Wildlife Department, as well as Dave Paletti and Scarlett Arbuckle, who are both instructors within the Fish and Wildlife Department. They have some great advice for students in the Fish and Wildlife Department, especially in these challenging times, and I hope you guys gain something from them.
So I am Erica Johnson, and I'm one of the academic advisors in the Fisheries and Wildlife Department at OSU. If a student is having issues with internet connectivity, there are some resources available to you on the Keep Learning site at OSU, and it is learn.oregonstate.edu. And they have a whole section on there that says internet options, and then there is a link to click if you're having trouble with internet connectivity or availability at your home or remote work area. If a student who's taking a remote class that's not used to it and they're having issues, they should contact their instructor as soon as they can. One big difference that is obvious with the distance classes is that your instructors and your peers don't see you every single time that the class meets. So if there's no way for us to see you, and interact with you face to face, there's no way for us to know if something is going on. So if something big happens in your life, like as soon as you're able to and you have the space to, please let your instructor know, or reach out to one of the academic advisors, and we're happy to assist you in any way possible. Or if it's something sensitive, reach out to a faculty member or something that you feel comfortable talking to. SU classes should generally only be used in kind of an emergency situation where you need to protect your GPA. So normally we only let students SU one class in the major. Things are changing a lot right now, so that could change as far as if we'll allow more than one just due to this term. But as a general rule of thumb, we're recommending that students avoid SUing classes if at all possible. It's not kind of like a get out of jail free card. People are willing to be more lenient these days, and being understanding with the whole situation going on. But if at all possible, just keep the, A through F letter grade option. Do as best as you can. Ask for help early and often. And if you do need to utilize that SU option, we recommend reaching out to one of the academic advisors if you need a little bit more guidance on this. We work with this a lot and can be able to talk you through whatever situation's going on and provide a little bit of guidance just based on your unique situation. Well, kind of going back to earlier when I mentioned just keeping that line of communication open with your instructors and your advisor, or even if you have a faculty advisor, keeping them in the loop of what's going on, or if there's another faculty member that you might be comfortable sharing these things with, or one of the academic advisors that works in the front office normally, set up, and just send us a quick email, let us know if there's something that you're concerned about or worried about, and we can either help you find the resources that might help your situation or kind of talk through what some of your options might be if that's needed. But yeah, the biggest thing is let us know what's going on as soon as you're able to. We're all here for you. We want you to succeed this term. I know everything's really weird, but everyone's doing the best that they can, and we're super proud of you, and we really appreciate your adaptability and your resilience this term.
My name is Dave Paletti. I'm a senior instructor here in the Department of Fisheries and Wildlife. I've been with the department since 2011, I believe. And in that time, I've taught quite a few classes, but the main ones I teach are FW 475, Wildlife Behavior, as well as FW 49, Effective Communication of Science. So those are my two main tasks. Predominantly online classes, so I've got a lot of background in operating what used to be Blackboard and now Canvas, and so I could speak to a lot of what goes on there and give any tips that you guys are looking for.
Hi everyone, my name is Scarlett Arbuckle and I'm an instructor in the Fisheries and Wildlife Department at Oregon State University. I've been teaching various courses, both online and on campus for several years now. And I wanted to share some of my ideas and responses for success for these online remotely delivered courses that we're now offering through Oregon State University.
I think the big thing is it's a little bit different for everybody in every class. So the first thing I encourage students to pay attention to is these due dates for the different posts. A lot of classes say you need the first post by Tuesday and the second post by this day. So becoming familiar with the due dates and how many posts each week for each of your classes is really important. And it can be pretty hard to get used to, especially in the first week or two. But after that, hopefully you'll have a good idea of what's expected of you. So first become familiar with that schedule. The second thing is what I look for within those posts are just that you put a little bit of thought into it. You know, I want to know that you're just not shooting something out for the sake of getting the points. I want to know that you answered the question and you took just a minute or two to think about it. And this doesn't mean a 6-paragraph response, you know, just a couple thoughtful sentences is usually adequate for me.
Post. And honestly, it varies so much from each course that you really need to make sure that you're following the instructions for that course. So that's a pretty important step to making a good discussion post. I also feel like what you're trying to emulate is a discussion. So typically what we want is not a giant paragraph of information. It's a lot better to make a short, succinct point or two, ask a question, trying to engage each other and make it a discussion instead of just an essay. That's not really what most people want. Now, again, if the instructions are, please write an essay or write a brief summary or something else, that's what you should post to the discussion board. I'm just giving you what I personally would look for in discussions. The next question.
For our course Canvas sites, it should be very early on in the menu. It should be at the top of the syllabus, how to contact us. And right now the main ways are going to be email or through Canvas, through the Canvas email system. Personally, so the students know what happens on my end, I prefer students email me directly rather than through Canvas, because what happens is a student will send an email to me through Canvas, and it goes to my regular OregonState.edu email, and I can read it from there, and that's no problem. But then it says you can respond just by responding to this email. However, again, this is just for me, it doesn't work. I can't hit reply because it doesn't go to you. So it makes me go through a middleman, that being Canvas, and try and find that email and go through there. So it adds another couple steps for the instructor. Maybe all of them don't have that problem, but I do. Scarlett, you're nodding your head, so maybe you do have that problem as well. So I encourage students just to email me directly if they have a question. There's also many online classes, and hopefully these new remote classes have a page set up in the discussion board for Q&As that are appropriate for the whole class. Like, hey, I tried this link that you posted and it's broken. You know, that's something that you would want to post on this general discussion board if it exists, because it's going to be applicable to the whole class. And that's much better for the instructor. That's much better for me, so I'm not repeating myself to 35 different students. So if you don't have a general Q&A board, it's worth bringing up to your instructor. Again, a lot of professors and faculty on campus, they're new to remote teaching, and they may not, have yet discovered the real value of these discussion boards and the Canvas sites and how much they can do. So if you've got a lot of experience as a student with online classes, feel free to suggest things, privately to your instructor that have worked for you in previous classes.
That was asked was, what is the best way to contact you if you have questions? So each and every course should have a little bit of information provided using the modules. Now, obviously a lot of these instructors did not have the ability to make their Canvas site everything they want. It's not always possible. But if you do have time to check around in the syllabus or in the modules, you'll often find something about how to contact the instructor. I have my communications policy right here. So if you look in there, it actually tells you how to communicate with me, what kind of information to send in a discussion forum, what kind of information to email. You can find the contact information for me and different ways to connect with me. So I'm used to teaching a lot of courses online, so this is how I share information with my students. You might find this information in an announcement. You might find that information in a syllabus. So finding that information for each instructor is really important, but I do highly recommend communicating with your instructor. I had a few students that had issues getting my required textbook this term, and in order to know that they were having that trouble, they had to tell me. So once I received word that they were having trouble getting it delivered because of the virus issues that are happening right now, I was able to contact the library and get them to scan some of the first few chapters of the book so that they could post them into a box drive and give access to all of my students. That's not necessarily the case for every situation, but it worked out here. And I can do whatever I can to help my students if they communicate that information to me. So the next.
As online learners and remote learners, organizing your deadlines is probably the hardest thing. Canvas does have the ability to load a lot of deadlines on the calendar, but with the addition of now these remote classes that weren't intended to be online, they might not all appear. So you probably don't want to rely 100% on the Canvas calendar. So honestly, it's going to be up to the student to be very good about maintaining due dates somewhere written down and not just in their heads. You know, my suggestion is to get it on a calendar, Outlook, whatever, your Apple Calendar, whatever is easiest for them.
Yeah. Again, it's going to have to be individual based on what you individually want to do. You know, you had all these same deadlines that you had before. This is not anything new. This is something you've already had to deal with in the past. So it shouldn't be drastically different. It's however you usually organize your deadlines. But I do want to show you a couple quick tips. Generally, in my courses, if I've inputted my assignments properly into the Canvas system, they will show up on the calendar. Now, something to keep in mind is that if you have your calendar set up correctly, it will show you which course has which assignments and when they're due. But sometimes you might not see when the first post is due for a discussion board. I've made a reminder for my undergrad course that there's a first discussion board post is due by Sunday, and then the end of that discussion board is due on Friday. But I didn't necessarily do that for every single one of my courses. So keep in mind that that's something that you might want to go ahead and look at the syllabus or the instructions for as well to make sure that's in there. You can add events to this calendar. I'm pretty sure you can link it, I think, to a Google Calendar or other options. So just make sure that you're looking at that option. If you can look at the assignments list, you can actually see what's due here in each one of these assignment categories. So you can actually look at due dates right here. I don't find that particularly helpful, but it is something if you were going to copy all of your due dates into a calendar or a weekly planner, you could kind of get those due dates quickly by looking here or at the calendar, especially if they've been inputted correctly into Canvas. And then of course, if you have to remember that a lot of the instructors are not used to using Canvas, so they might not know to do those things. So you can still go to something like the syllabus, and in the syllabus, you'll be able to find the due dates for things just by looking through and finding the information on which week has which due dates. So you should be able to find this information in various places. I know it might take a little digging around for each course, but if you set yourself up now, you can make a term at a glance like this, like I have provided for my students in this course, and you can kind of set it up yourself and see which courses are due, when are they due, and make a quick list for each course, or you can set it up in a weekly planner. It just has to be whatever works for you. Sometimes courses will have an overview, and in these overviews for each week, they will list what is due that week. Sometimes, if they're done by the way that eCampus recommends, you'll see a list of things. This is the task list. So you'll be able to check there and find what is due for each week. That's another option. Finally, I almost forgot about this. When you go to your course website, there is a to-do list over here on the right-hand side as well. That can kind of give you a little bit of a warning if something is coming due soon, when it's due, things like that. Again, those have to be inputted into Canvas correctly in order for that function to work. So I'm just trying to give you all the different ways you might be able to find that information. So you'll be able to know maybe one of your courses is using the assignments really well and they're inputted into Canvas. So you'll be able to find it on your to-do list and on your calendar. And then another instructor might be using the modules list to give you tasks or announcements to remind you when things are due. So you'll just kind of have to find your groove and figure out what's best. But you know, don't forget there's a lot of different places to look and ways to help yourself to manage that.
It does vary by course, and you know, I can still remember being a student very well, and to me, it was always about knocking out that first exam or that first test, and that's when you get a feel for the type of questions your instructor writes, the composition of it, you know, meaning is it like some sprinkling of essay questions and multiple choice and true and false, you know, and whatnot. There's no problem either with asking ahead of time what you can expect. You know, ask the instructor, hey, I know we've got a test next week. What can we expect? You know, how long will it take? Does it have to be proctored? Is it open book? All those questions. Don't be shy about asking. Yeah. And, you know, even then, once you take that first test, you'll have a very good idea of how to prepare for future ones.
Cool. Moving along. The next question was, what is the best way to study for your tests? I do feel like that is, again, a question that depends on the course and what you're talking about. So I think that that's a question you should ask your instructor. And I know that this has been mentioned by a few of the other people here, but I wanted to throw it out there one more time. If you are in a class with that's on campus and you wanted to know what you're supposed to study for, you would often raise your hand and say, can you talk about the test? What's the test going to be like? Is it going to be, what's the format? How long is it? Or is it timed? All the other questions that you might normally ask. So it's really important that you continue that communication. I know it takes a little more effort to email or to post it on a question and answer discussion board, but you need to make sure you do that. And remember, there might be a little bit of a delay. So try to ask those questions earlier than the week the test is, you know, the day before the test. It's not really going to be very helpful. You want to be able to ask that question early enough for the instructor to provide the information, and they might even suggest ways to study. They might even have ideas. They might say, I'm going to create a study guide or something else. You never know. It's worth asking, and it's not just about tests. You want to ask about other things as well. When you're having a problem or you can't find something, I'm always very pleased when someone finds an error and tells me about it. If you find an error and you don't tell me, I can't make that correction as quickly. It's a lot more helpful if the students communicate with me that that is a problem.
I could speak to my class, say wildlife behavior, for example. My exams are intended to be closed book. They are timed. I have no problem with students studying together. In fact, if you have the ability, go for it. But they should be taken alone. To answer the question more specifically, there's probably a couple things we can do now that we have to be separated. For online students, you can contact one another through Canvas or just direct email and say, hey, you know, you want to FaceTime, Google Chat, whatever it is, and study together. That's one easy way. You can also ask your instructor if they would be willing to set up a new discussion board specifically for students that want to just go that route and use a discussion board to pop questions back and forth. And then, you know, I think maybe for students that are taking these classes remotely now this term, which is a bit of a new thing, that might be a little bit easier. And I say that because, you know, maybe a lot of these students are in Corvallis, so they don't have to worry about trying to have a study session with somebody that's in New York, you know, with the different time zones. So with everybody being in Corvallis, it might be easier to get some sort of like Google Hangouts or something like that together. And so asking your instructor to facilitate that or giving you tips, it doesn't hurt.
I feel like, I think that if, you know, if one of them, if I don't have a course currently that had to be transitioned online, but any of the classes that I teach on campus, I almost expect the students to be studying together. I know that they're going to study together. So I don't know why I wouldn't encourage them to study together. Studying together is a great way to learn. It's a great way to work. If it works well for you and a group of friends, why wouldn't you do it? I don't know if every instructor feels that way, but I do know that most of them want you to take the test independently. In fact, I can tell you it's pretty obvious. It's kind of obvious when two students that are online students have studied together and their you know, their exam really reads almost the same. You can almost tell when that happens, when the answers have the exact same points and they're losing points on the same things. So you don't want to be taking the exams together. It really will lead to problems, but studying together is not a bad idea. I mean, I assume that the students are going to study together on campus, so trying to do that is not a bad idea. Tips for setting up a study group. I would really suggest that you use the discussion and the open question and answer discussion boards. In case you guys didn't know, in the left-hand navigation of your courses, there should be a people list, and you can find your classmates, email them through Canvas, and try to communicate well with them that you're interested in setting up a study group. And if anyone's interested to come, you can set up the time, the day, how to do it. You might even find a way to set up a Google Doc where you have a list of questions or questions that you think could be answered, and then everyone kind of helps answer the questions, things like that. You know, you can do it a lot of different ways. That's one of the great things about this. Access to these tools just puts you in a really good position to be able to take advantage of them. So I hope that you guys take every opportunity to, you know, you guys can create your own Zoom meetings. If you go to, I think it's is.oregonstate.edu/Zoom, you can set up your own Zoom account and invite your friends to a meeting and make sure that, and, you know, make sure everyone is able to study together just like you normally would. So those are some ideas. I hope that they help. I know that you guys already have a lot going on in your mind. I just want to reassure you that the instructors are really considering all of that, and we're thinking about it, and we're trying our best to make sure that you are able to stay on track to get your degrees. That's our goal. We know this is not ideal. We know this isn't what you want to be doing. It's not what we want to be doing, but the idea that, you know, you can still be successful with a little bit of extra effort, it's a true statement. You can do this, and we're here to help. We want to see you succeed despite all of these extra pressures. So again, just make sure you let us know if we can do something to help you. All right.
Pay attention to the announcements. These appear on Canvas. You know, I don't know if all students get those emailed directly to them automatically when I post them or when another faculty member posts them, but pay attention to the announcements because these are going to let you know what the heck's going on, what to look out for, corrections to deadlines, all that thing. So
normally I would have said that the best tip for Canvas is using this help button over on the left-hand menu. The problem is lately with how busy things have been, if you try to just use this help I would say using the chat here. There's, chat with a Canvas support, and I have faculty. You can also do it as students here. The problem is there's kind of bogged down. There's a lot of people on there right now asking a lot of questions, and it takes a really long time. So once again, the best thing I can suggest is just to ask those questions early. That's the number one tip that I can find. The last thing I want to show you is the settings. This is something I tell all my students in my courses, and I hope that it will help you as well. When you go into your account and you click on settings, you should be able to change some of your notification settings. I apologize, that's just under notifications, not the other way I was showing you. And here you can see that there's a legend at the top where if you want to be notified right away about something, there's a notify me right away symbol. You can also have send a daily summary, send a weekly summary, or don't send me anything at all. Now you might be tempted to say, I don't want to be sent anything because I just get too many emails as it is and I'm not checking those. This is the time where you need to be checking those emails. You need to be looking at these things. A weekly summary is fine, but you might miss some critical information, including Zoom links that instructors are sending via announcements. So I think a daily summary is an option. And for certain things you really want to get a notification right away. You can add other email addresses, but you really want to do it for your ONIT especially. So you can go through and say, oh, if something changes, like a due date changes, then you can change that to say, I want to know right away if a due date changes so that I'm not stressed out trying to finish a lab when it turns out we've got 3 extra days to finish it. I don't usually have those as notify me because I'm the instructor and I'm going to be the person changing it. But eventually you might have other things down here, all these different options that you might want to have something right away. To get discussion posts sent right to your inbox, you even might have, you want the discussion posts immediately sent to you right away so that you know someone has posted and you can respond quickly. I do that because if someone asks a question in my live question and answer session, I want to know so that I can quickly go to that discussion board and answer their question instead of waiting. Additionally, I think there was at least one other thing I wanted to point out that was really important. You might really want to get those announcements sent directly to you immediately. And again, you should just look through this list. You can hover and it'll give you an explanation about what's there. There was a setting in here I remember. So when a student makes a comment on their submission, like they had a question like, why did I lose this point? Or what do you mean by use the citation? What style should I be using? I couldn't see those comments and I never was going back to the individual student and replying, but I changed this setting and now I can see them. I get sent an email as soon as someone makes a comment on their submission, which is really helpful for me. And if you're going to be communicating through that to your instructor, you might want to have that submission comment made as well so that you know when I've replied or when the instructor replies to you. All right, so hopefully those little tips in Canvas are helpful to some of you. I know that it's not everything, and I know there's still a lot to work out in details, but hopefully that's a little bit of things you didn't already know about Canvas.
As I said earlier, I'm teaching online every term, and I've done it many, many years. So I'm used to the format. It's not foreign to me. When things come up, I can resolve them usually fairly quickly. For students that are not used to it, this can be a lot harder. So the first thing I would suggest is having some sort of schedule for yourself and having a little bit of discipline. This doesn't mean having your day scheduled out to 15-minute increments, but if you used to show up for a class Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 10 o'clock, maybe and your remote class is not synchronous, you might have an instructor that is not doing a synchronous class. Make yourself do it synchronously. That's one suggestion to provide some sort of structure in your day. And that's something that helps me a lot to stay on track. If I know at 10 o'clock, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I was supposed to be here, then it doesn't really throw my day into disarray. So that's one thing. The second thing I might say is try and be patient with the other students in your class, with yourself if you're having problems, and with the faculty member that's running the class, because a lot of them, this is their first time too, and they're just figuring it out. Right now we're in week 2, so hopefully things are starting to smooth out, but I can guarantee they're not smooth yet, but they will be. So they are learning just like you are, and any feedback you can give them, again, kind of like I mentioned earlier, if you're a student in a remote class that has a lot of experience with online classes, I think your instructor might appreciate, a little heads up with anything that has worked for you in the past, and you see that maybe isn't working so well right now in your remote class, go ahead and say something. Yeah, just try and be patient with the instructor and your fellow students when the chat functions are all over the board and the camera's glitchy and the background is all whacked out and things like that. We'll get it sorted out.
And that wraps up everything for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys made it to the end. I hope you gained something great from these videos. Thank you to everybody that was involved in this process of making this video. And a big thanks to our academic advisor for the Fish and Wildlife Day Club, Scarlett Arbuckle, for interviewing everybody. I know it took a lot of time and patience. Thank you so much.